A, B, C, D, E.
Perfect.
My daughter sings it, so I get it all the time.
Good luck.
Hello, everybody. My name is Lat Mackey, and this is Sequence Break, episode 47, lackattack24. Hey, Lack, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Is there any significance to the 24? I've always wondered. I'm just,
It's just it was my lucky number. I wore it on all my sports jerseys. I'm actually considering dropping the 24. I've been thinking about it for years and never pulled the trigger. So people ask me all the time. But yeah, it's just the number I used on my jerseys and stuff. So
there you go. Did you play sports growing up or anything?
I played a lot of sports. Nice. Nothing like high level, but I played rec leagues and intramurals in school and stuff like that. And I played up until like a year ago. And just run out of time to do extra things. So I do it more sparingly now.
And we're definitely going to find why you've run out of time for some things a little bit later on here. So first things first, thanks so much for doing this. One of the reasons I wanted to chat with you at this point is that, first of all, the Z1, it seems like almost once a month now, I see a new Z1 record coming out. And I know that's not the case, but there have been the game is really being driven in new directions, including new routes and all these kind of things. And I think it's awesome that a game that's as old as Zelda 1 is still finding all these new ways to really significantly impact the time that exists out there. So thanks so much for taking the time. It's pretty awesome. I can't wait to get to some of it. But let's go ahead and let's take it back just a little bit. And when did you start gaming? What were some of your consoles growing up? Kids, games that you played growing up? What was it like? Some of the games you had experience with?
So I started out on NES when I was like 5 years old. My cousins had it. And so I played whenever we went to their house. I eventually got my own Nintendo, played a lot of Mario, a lot of Zelda. A lot of the games I have are still the ones that I had when I was a kid. So it goes a long way back and actually impacts a lot of the things that I play now in terms of speedrunning. But I was a Nintendo guy. I played NES, Game Boy, Super Nintendo 64. And then I went to PS2 around college because that's what my friends had. And we were playing NCAA football and kind of got into that mode. So PS2 was really my first like diversion from Nintendo. And then I was big into Xbox 360. Was a big achievement hunter, actually. I did a lot of achievement stuff. I love to complete games and more personal challenges. So, and then when I found speedrunning, I was still doing Xbox 360, and I came back to Nintendo once I started speedrunning. So I've kind of gone, all over.
I mentioned, I tweeted out about this, that your speedrun.com profile literally took like 10 seconds to load up when I was going to search it.
It's annoying, yeah.
It's so many games. So, but I'm curious, like as a kid, were you beating games? Like, were you completing games as a kid, or did you enjoy the variety, or was it all of the above? I don't know. Were you able to complete games, I guess, as a kid is what I'm asking.
Yeah, I completed almost every game. I mean, I think I remember beating Zelda when I was less than 10, like 7 years old, 8 years old.
Whoa, okay, wow.
So, I mean, I don't know. I just kind of drove myself to do it as much as my memory lets me go back. I do remember beating games though. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you mentioned, but you did play sports growing up as a kid. And I'm curious, did you have some of that competitive juice or that competitive energy from sports and other things like that as you were growing up?
Yeah, sometimes to my own demise. I was very competitive, and I've turned that competitiveness into I kind of channel it differently now than I used to in my teens and 20s. So it's definitely taken on many forms.
I could only imagine. When did you first discover speedrunning, or how did that become a thing that you even had heard about?
So I remember in early 2013, I was just looking on YouTube for Zelda videos or something, and Speedrun came up for Ocarina of Time. And I watched it. It was a GDQ run of Ocarina of Time, and I watched it and was just kind of blown away at what I was seeing. I'd never, I knew glitches existed in games, but never saw them taken advantage of like the way they were. And so it really got me interested. And so I just kept watching more and more videos. I'm like, oh, Mario's on, Mario RPG's on here. Zelda 1's on here. And I watched, an old race, and I was like, I feel like I can do this. So I decided to just try my hand at it. And, it's been a hobby that's now gone on this is year 8. And, I don't remember being into a hobby as much as speedrunning, other than just like general sports, like following football or something like that, but nothing like specific like this. Gaming in general, I guess, but this is pretty focused, a focused hobby, I would say.
Yeah, I totally agree. What was the first game that you even considered speedrunning for yourself?
The first game I speedran was Super Adventure Island 2, which I haven't played in years, but that was a game that I just loved playing. There was no time for it on Speed Demo's archive. And so I said, well, shoot, I couldn't find a time anywhere. So I said, well, I'm just going to do this and time it and get the world record in it. I thought that was cool. And so I did. It was a little over an hour. But that was probably in like April of 2013. And, I was hooked. I was like, I just love the trying to get good at a single player game. Because, it's like, well, I beat this game, but how fast did you beat it? That kind of weighs in on it too. And I actually dabbled in Wind Waker for a little bit. It's a little known fact. Never did a run,
that's
but
surprising.
I learned some tech. I learned how to do super swims and stuff like that. So I could do what I saw on the internet. I thought it was really fun. And I saw the way I related to video games to other people, because I'd talk about them, but it was not as interesting as this. I thought it was so cool. And some of my friends, like, we just stopped talking about games altogether because they just didn't really understand, like, well, why are you playing these old games?
Yeah.
And I just said, well, I just kind of went off on the side. So like my Xbox went back in the box, and I got all of the old games out and started playing that. So
do you have your original consoles, or did you have to put some of this stuff together?
Well, so I had I had an apartment fire when I was in college.
Oh no!
I lost everything. I had a couple of the consoles were at home, or I think N64 was at home, but all my NES, Super Nintendo, all gone. So I had to rebuild the whole thing.
Whoa, brutal!
Which kind of sucked.
Yeah,
yeah, it was really, really depressing. It's like other than the fact I lost like all my clothes and everything.
That stuff's
I was down to the felt, like had nothing left,
Yeah.
but was definitely disappointed over the games. So,
Oh,
but I have it all now. Like there's nothing really I'm missing from back in the day. So
Well, that's the one thing that I wasn't expecting when I started speedrunning. I've never been a collector. I've never been somebody who like wanted to put all the games together, but I feel like, you want to if that's your thing, it's really fun to play on the original console, on the original hardware with the original games and stuff. And so all of a sudden, all of a sudden now you've got a library of games.
I mean, you can see behind me. I mean, most of this is just over the years. I've got all the consoles there, so it's nice to have it kind of centrally displayed.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It's a fun. It's once again part of the hobby. I think it goes along with the speedrunning thing. It's a fun aspect of it. What was your did you have an approach, or did you have a process of learning games or speedruns early on compared to how you do it nowadays? Has that process changed at all for you for speedrunning?
Actually, now that you asked the question, it really hasn't. I just decided, like, every time I do a speedrun, I set splits up. Even though I don't even know what I'm doing, I just play the game and beat the game and just have a timer. And that's kind of how I've always approached it, of like play first, learn second, just to kind of like get familiarity with a game before like diving in deep. I want to get like the breadth before the depth.
Yes.
Because I want to be able to like one thing I've learned is, if you just learn a certain strat, if you mess up, then you're not like, how are you able to react to that and recover? And so if you're playing it more casually first, you might come up with some things of how to kind of bounce back from any mistakes. So I do that in almost every game that I speedrun. And I don't really know. I don't remember a game where I sat down and learned the game first before like completing a run.
Well, that's a really good point because do you practice off stream at all? Because every time I've noticed that a lot of your progression is on your stream, and a lot of times this is something you mentioned a few years ago that has always stuck with me. But you submit every single run you finish to Speed now because we have the tools. You can submit to speedrunner.com, so you can see your progression. But I'm curious if you do any grinding off stream, because a lot of I see your learning is still on stream nowadays. It's pretty interesting.
It depends on the game. Like sometimes and time too.
Yeah.
You know, like if I don't have 2 hours to stream, I'm probably not going to stream. And like if I just have like 30 minutes here or there, I'll just boot up and practice. Especially for games like Mega Man 2 and SM64 Super Metroid, like the games I've been playing recently. Like I'll try to get like at 30 minutes of practice, learn something new, or try to get a little more consistent. Practicing on stream, honestly, is so boring for me. Like just for me as a streamer, I like watching people practice sometimes, but for me, it's just not really what I like to do.
I don't blame you. It's monotonous, and then you try to talk through some of it. I'm right there with you. I know how that goes. When did you first attempt, or how did Z1 become a thing? How'd that happen?
Well, I mentioned the race I watched. It was Breakdown and Jay Profit were racing Z1 at GDQ, or it might have been 2012. There was a race. And I'm watching. I'm like, I mean, I remember being really good at this game, at least in my head. Yeah. So I decided to just try it. And, you know, I just picked it up. I think it was May 2013, May or June or something like that. And my first completed time was 1 hour and 2 minutes or so. And I don't know. I saw there was only, I think there were only like 15 people on the leaderboard at the time that I submitted a run. Now it's like over almost 300.
Yeah. Holy cow. Only 15. That's wild.
Yeah. So I was like immediately like in the top, X number. And I just kept I enjoyed it. I kept playing it. I got the stream set up so I could stream my attempts, and I got all that equipment. And I just really enjoyed it. So I just kept at it. And then some of the other Z1 guys came into chat, and we just started talking, and, it just kind of grew from there. But I just kept like getting more consistent and better at it. So I like to do things I'm good at. So I stayed with it.
I've heard you mention before that you didn't create a lot of the strats yourself. You were very good at kind of like taking in some of the things you saw other people doing and talking through this with other people. At that time, was there a task for, like, I'm not too familiar with that part of it, or were there, how were you developing or learning some of the ways to route the game and to play the game?
So the route of like going through the game was kind of established. Like that was, people like Darkwing Duck really kind of revolutionized or kind of established the modern route we do. There's been changes, but there was a task that existed, but it used up A, which Darkwing didn't do. So it was like just slightly different. It could it didn't get the magical sword. So like, this is something you can't do in real time at this point. It could come down the line, but so I really just followed what was there and just tried to like do it better. A lot of what I've contributed to the game are room strats of like clearing rooms quickly, rather than like which order to go, like go through the game. So I like to think that I contributed that way.
Absolutely. Well, see, that's one of the things that I find endlessly fascinating about The Legend of Zelda, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. That as far as a speedrun goes, it seems like it's multifaceted. There's, to your point, there's the combat, there's the mechanics, there's all these things happening. Can you walk us through some of the things that you enjoy or that make the speedrun unique? Because it's still, to this day, there's not many games are like this as far as a speedrun goes. Yeah,
it is pretty rare. Like the one thing that keeps Zelda 1 fresh is that it's really reactionary. So you're walking into a room, you know where the enemies start, but you don't know how they're going to move. Now, I say this knowing that it's changing because there are manipulations now in place, but for the most part, it's still like you still have to kind of react how the enemies move. You've got these multiple counts in your head that you're trying to keep track of to help you, like, forcing bombs and money. And getting the random bomb drops. Like we've kind of moved towards like the extra parts of the game to help us with the combat part. So we can be riskier in spaces, knowing that we could get a lucky drop later. Potentially throwing away the run.
Right.
You know, it's just, so there's just a lot to it. It can fall apart at any minute. Like there's really not much downtime in the run. Like even if on the overworld, like people lose a lot of time in the overworld just with screen scrolling and just enemies kind of getting in the way, just movement mistakes. The run's getting a little more sophisticated. It's got a recorder, which is a glitch that if you mess up, then you're really like going to lose like 25 seconds, like, and it's late in the run. So there's a lot of variability in the run too. It's just like people ask if I get tired of the music. I don't even hear the music anymore. I just keep playing. So the game's almost scripted in my head.
Right.
And then there's like these little improvisations along the way that you kind of you got to just roll with the punches. Because there's different strats. Like if you have full health or extra bombs, there's the patterns you get, the drops you get in the room, they can all impact how you clear the room. So there's a lot to it.
And that was something that kind of struck me early on. So I think I found the speedrun mostly through your stream, because I didn't really started watching streaming and speedrunning stuff until about 2016 or so. And I noticed that you would continue runs pretty late when you had red splits, like you were behind and stuff. And I'm like, wow, he's continuing on even though he's 4 seconds behind, 6 seconds. Like, how is he going to make up that time? And it always came. To your point, it always seems like there is something on the fly adjustments you had to make, and that seems like something that happens regardless of what category you're running. That can always be a thing that happens.
Yeah.
It's really cool. Would you just if you can, it seems like the categories have kind of like, it seems like they've expanded and we now have meme categories and some of those type of things. What are some of the main categories that you enjoy running and still run to this day?
So, I mean, there's first and second quests, right? So there are split categories for each one of those. And then within, this is talking about the main leaderboard. Mm-hmm. There's the straight any percent, like beat the game as quick as you can. No up A, which limits you from using the save warp, death warp function in the game. There's 100%, low percent, and then swordless. And those are kind of the main categories. I have only played no up A in the last year. I haven't played anything else. Last year, I was able to get the world record in every category all at the same time, which was pretty cool. It was awesome. Like, kind of like just a personal accomplishment. Yeah. So there were 13 times and I had all of them. So I played all of them. Some of them I only played for like 2 days and some I had to play for several weeks. So some of those times I haven't beaten in 3, and I had a couple going into it. So I didn't have to play all of them. I might revisit them later, but I really just focused on the no up A category because the historic 27 was on the horizon. There were a couple other people going for it, and so I wanted to throw my hat in the ring and was able to come out on top first. But I still, the category is not done. I feel like it could go another even like 20 seconds slower than it already is.
So wild.
It's really just who wants to do it. How much time do people want to put into it? Cause that's really going to be the bar that's there for the game. Like the task is 22 minutes and change. And so, we're at 27 and we're kind of like hitting that limit. It can go lower. It can be a little riskier, not get magical sword, different routing choices. But as far as execution goes, over that whole run, you're probably looking at like 20 seconds or so without any major route change or manipulation continuance.
Oh, fascinating. That's awesome. It's awesome to see that. And that actually leads perfect to my next question, which you mentioned it, just touched on it a little bit, but many of us, anybody who listens to this podcast or watches this podcast is familiar with Summoning Salt and his videos. And the 2017 Zelda, it's if you haven't watched it yet, please do yourself a favor and do it. It's really fun to see how it got up to where it was at that point. What has kind of changed, or what evolutions have happened since 2017 that have really driven this time down even a lot further than many of us even imagined back in 2017?
It's really crazy that video was even 3 years ago. Like I do remember answering the questions from Summoning Salt about the game and just how I played. But so the route is much different, although it's about the same in terms of time. It just moves the kind of the resource requirements to later in the run, and it helps get more runs off the ground. So before there was a hard cap, you needed 60 rupees by the time you got to the blue candle, or you couldn't progress. So now getting the red candle, you don't have to buy that. You have a little more time to get the money, required money, which it's a lot less money because you're not buying that candle. You're getting the one in the dungeon. It reroutes some hearts to later. So like you're not wasting a minute walking to get all these hearts in your runs. So you're like completing more runs because you're not. It's like if you have to watch a cutscene and you can watch it later rather than earlier, that means you're getting past the difficult part of the run, and then the cutscene comes after. So like you don't have to waste that real time of 1 minute in the middle of the run. So so that's changed. There's manipulations also. So now you can you can manipulate level 3, and people do that regularly. Now, their manipulations do exist for level 4 and level 1 and up to the recorder. It's been proven out in theory by JSR and some other people, but he kind of spearheads that movement. So it has been done. I think it will find its way into the speedrun eventually. But it's funny, like 90% of the run is the same. Like you might go to 1 or 2 new screens, but you're still doing those same screens throughout the game.
If you don't mind me asking, because I have been watching JSR stream as well, seeing him do some of these things. How does the manipulation kind of work, broadly or generally?
Yeah, so when you turn the game on, there's an RNG counter that just goes up continually, and basically events in the game depend on that value. So we have. JSR. Yeah, I'm a user, man. I don't contribute. So he came up with this kind of like a musical cue. Or basically, you figured out how many frames to get to the door of level 3, and then once you're in level 3, like you can move using diagonals and kind of move consistently throughout the dungeon. So basically, we'll just use like 4,000 frames from start as just the dummy number. So you turn the console on or reset 4,000 frames from that moment. That is the window you have to hit. You have a 4-frame window of entering the dungeon to get a specific pattern. And then once you're in the dungeon, you have to move frame perfectly to continue to hold the manipulation of not only movement, but drops. So like if we walk into a room if you walk into 3, you can use and we're using audio cues to go into the dungeon. So like I have a live split timer that counts down to like tell me when to push start.
Oh, cool.
On the file select screen.
Yeah. And
then I'm listening for an audio cue in the overworld to enter. And you have 4 frames. There's a second frame rule afterwards, a frame rule of 4 frames. So you have an 8-frame window to get on a known state so that you can execute a manipulation. Some of them are better than others, but they all kind of net you the same, like within like 3 or 4 seconds. So you have to move frame perfectly. Like you buffer movement with the sword, with placing bombs, running into enemies. Like it's all choreographed to give you favorable patterns and drops. It's really interesting.
It's really wild. And I appreciate you pointing out some of those audio cues and things, because we are seeing manipulations in other games that are in the universe that are like some of the Mario stuff that's happening and things like that. And it's interesting to find what those dependencies are and what causes them. Like you mentioned the 4 to 8 frame window, and interestingly enough, that's pretty small, but that's actually doable for, especially for a speedrunner who's been playing the game long enough. So that's something you might have some consistency at getting, actually.
Yeah, I mean, when we're doing this, I mean, if you can get a lot of the mistakes are actually scrolling to level 3, you have 2 screen scrolls to execute before you get to the screen. But if you get there with the time, your success rate, like my success rate is probably like 80% to get one of them.
Jeez.
So it's really like, it depends on your start presses. So it's just repetition and doing it. But I practice more the inside rather than the outside, because if you're 1 frame off, like then you mess up the pattern. So it's pretty annoying at times, like especially if you're in a rut, like you just can't find the audio cue or something. It's really cool to see. It just helps get runs off the ground, which lead to lower times, because a lot of the resets happen. It's like 80% of the resets, 85% happen in level 3. Now you take that out. Look at how low the time went. I think it was 28:17. The record was when the manipulations came out. And since then, it's gone down 20 seconds just in, I mean, that was, I guess, a year and a half or so. But there's been talk of like manipulations not being the best thing for the game, because that's like why it's so good is you can't do that. It's all unknown. But I think, honestly, like I'm happy with this balance of like the beginning of the game really sucks. I want to keep going. Like I just want to keep playing. So that's, I'm fine with it.
I totally agree with you. And there are going to be some people who it maybe not be for them, and they can still, work on their own times and things like that. I think that's really interesting that that's a place where it's going. And also it's going to further some more creativity in more options and what might happen in the future. And that's why I think it's good for the community. It's good, it's in that sense. Absolutely. That, trying new things. You touched on this a little bit, and I think this is something I've really taken away from your speedruns and hearing you talk about speedrunning is you mentioned that you still want to you think there's 20 seconds there. You set goals when you speedrun. And I'm curious what that process is like. Like how do you go about setting a goal, and why that's important to kind of your progress as a speedrunner?
Well, I look at achievement type. I guess achievement goals are the same thing, but like I like to just kind of set a bar for myself. Like I have a time that I'm going for. So if I don't do that, I'll just keep going. And then if it gets tough, maybe I'll just stop, or I'll just continue playing the game for months and, have no end in sight. It also gives people, I guess, some context of like of what I'm trying to do, rather than like, are you just trying to get the world record in this game? And it's like, well, no, I don't have that skill. Like it's not how much time I want to invest in the game. It kind of gives me a hard stop in the game too. So, I don't want to get stuck on a game for a long time. And it's a lot of the games I pick are games that I'm mostly familiar with. I have friends who speedrun the game at an extremely high level that I really respect, and I'm like, I need to get a good time. And like Super Metroid, for example, like I just cutting 50 minutes is a pretty big milestone for me, even though it's not like a world-renowned time, but it's within the context of like speedrunning community. But I like doing that. I like charting the progress. I like the whole like meta atmosphere, or the things that come out of it. Like I have spreadsheets for all this. I track every single PB. I basically will take a run that someone's done to kind of model after, and then I track per split like how I'm doing versus that person, and see, like that helps me decide what I need to work on. And it kind of gives some people some optics into like my thought process along the way.
It's definitely something I've done with my own speedrunning. And one of the things that I found was kind of, I don't know if it's a happy accident, but I don't really watch my runs a lot. But once a year, I like to revisit the goal sheet, like you mentioned. And I find myself rewatching some of those runs. And quite often, I mean, we're presented with a lot of failure as a speedrunner. A lot of times we're not going to finish a run. So actually, one of the things I found going through my goal sheet and watching some of those runs, I was like, oh, you know what? Hey, that was a progression. Like that was, I accomplished something for that. And for the mental health aspect of it, it definitely made the entire experience. Okay, it's a little bit more, it's not as bad as I always thought. Or maybe it was as bad. I don't know. But so there's that aspect of it as well, which I really, I'm glad I do that. And I wouldn't have done that had I not heard you talk about it. So. Mm-hmm. So it's something pleasant surprise. There's so many games that you speedrun, and I made a joke about it, about your SRC taking so long to load. What are some of the other games that you've really enjoyed outside of Z1 as far as speedruns go?
Well, I mentioned a couple earlier, like Mega Man 2 is one that I did before, and I brought it back. That game is so much fun. It's so much fun to be good at, and just nail the tricks is just really satisfying. I picked up Super Mario 3D World, which I had never played before the late 2019.
Oh, I didn't know you'd never played it before. Wow, that's impressive.
I had played it just a little, like casually, but never beat it.
Yeah.
My wife and I just played it because I owned the game, and then we started racing it. So that was like super fun. We went on like 3 or 4 months where we were just playing that like every week.
Did she ever win?
Oh, I meant speedrunning.
Oh, gotcha.
But we beat the game casually. Nice, she did win a few levels, and she's always upset that I would get the crown for the next level. So there's that. I've done, well, Super Mario RPG I'm getting back to. That's like an old favorite that I've done. But I haven't begun to go for that. I did the Big 20 for a while, so like that introduced a ton of games to me that I hadn't really learned. And I played. I had done a speed run for 15 of the 20 going in, and so I improved my times a lot at those games. But some of them stuck, and some of them didn't. I kind of like the Big 20 as like a little break from speedrunning. Like I had been doing Zelda for like a month or so, and I couldn't PB, did Big 20 and came back and PB'd in like a week after starting again. So having those games to kind of like offset your main game is really important to me.
I remember watching your grind of the 20, and first of all, had you ever, attempted something like that where you play so many multiple games? And then secondly, and this is going to lead into some other stuff, but do you take notes, or you're using notes? Like, how do you remember how to do all of those things for that period of time?
I mean, I don't know. I just treat it as like one long speed run.
Got it.
You've got Big 20 was like a 3-hour type goal. So I do speed runs that were over 3 hours where I don't look at notes. Wow. Or, may have some like Final Fantasy 6 is one of them. That was like 6 hours. Definitely looking at notes for that.
Okay.
But, as you play it, you kind of remember more and more. And knowing it is much better than reading it. Especially if you're trying to compete with other people. Like if you're having to read your notes on what to do, you're definitely not gonna be as good as someone who knows it.
How did Mario RPG come about for you? Because it's one of my favorite runs to watch. I've only played the game casually a bit, but for some reason, I always find that speedrun just endlessly watchable. It always seems it's a very engaging, and it's a good game. It's a good game to look at. It's got nice graphics and everything. Was that one of those ones growing up as a kid? How did that game come about as a speedrun?
Yeah, I played that a lot growing up. I remember buying it at a Kmart for $67, and
rest in peace.
I was
Kmart.
Kmart's no longer there. But I remember beating the game. It was and still is my favorite game to this day. I picked up a speed run in 2014 or so. I'd never done 100 super jumps, so I had to like learn how to do that. And I took that run, and it was so much fun to me. I kept playing, eventually did get the world record at 2 separate occasions, which was really a great accomplishment for me. I was able to run it at GDQ Marathon and, as a closer in one event, and that was super fun.
It's an awesome run.
Yeah, and I agree with you. It is a really watchable speed run, mostly because it's like every time you get over a hurdle, it's just the anticipation to the next hurdle of random boss fight or your random whatever spells you get or freebies. Like it's just the way that the game's routed is super cool, and it has a really passionate community around it. And there's still the time's still getting lowered, so it's there's a couple people vying for the top time. right now. So it's been fun to watch.
I had Pidge was on the podcast early on, and she was talking about the randomizer, and it's a lot of fun to watch the randos and things. Do you play any of the randomizers? Do you find any of that enjoyable as a speedrunner? I didn't
Across all games or Mario
RPG or any of the others as well.
So I did a lot of randomizers. I helped with like the testing of SMRPG and the Zelda 1 randomizer back in the day. It's funny. The randomizer, Zelda 1 randomizer, and really modern randomizers were born in my chat in 2015. Fred Coughlin, who made the Z1 randomizer, was in chat, and I just said, the best part of Zelda 1 is like going around for the first time and finding the dungeons and the items. Like that was a cool thing. Like we need to recreate that. And he said, I'll get back to you. And so he went and created it. So I came up, I'm just an ideas man. I don't actually do anything. So I was helped kind of spur that along, but the credit goes to him. But I do like to poke at him that it was my idea. He just executed it. So I play those. I play SMZ3, the Super Metroid Link to the Past randomizer, combo rando. And that's my favorite one. That's the most fun to me. I've dabbled in like Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Link to the Past. I think I've tried a couple others, but really just the big Super Adventure Island 2. If you guys are looking for a great game, that's one of my favorites. So.
Did the randomizer, the Z1, the Metroid and Zelda randomizer, is that what got you into wanting to attempt the Super Metroid speedrun?
Well, actually, it's more like I was playing rando and I wanted to be better because I saw like my opponents had a really high skill ceiling in Super Metroid. I'm like, well, I have to get better. I've loved that game. That was my 5th Super Nintendo game. I do remember.
Oh wow!
And I played it a lot, and I had done casual runs. I actually raced Super Metroid back in 2014. On Speedruns Live, and my goal was to beat one person that didn't forfeit. And I did that a couple times, but the rando definitely you want to be good at the randomizer instead of do that. You need to be good at the speedrun. But I love the speedrun. There's just so much tech, and watch people that are really high skill level at that game is one of the coolest things to see it in speedrunning.
I've mentioned it many times before on this podcast, but watching people run Super Metroid in real life, mostly at GDQs, is it's a thing of art, to say the least. The way that your fingers have to operate the controller, it's still tough for me to comprehend. I don't see, there's not many games like that require you to use the controller that way, that you have to do it at a high level for Super Metroid. It's absolutely fascinating. So... let's see. So one of the things I thought was interesting is that you run both 2D and 3D games. Mario being one of the ones that comes to mind right away. And your Mario 64 runs are really impressive at the level. I mean, I know there's a gajillion runners for the game and everything, but I'm curious is that something that do you have to relearn when you're moving from a 2D game to a 3D game, or is that something that just kind of comes naturally getting back into the swing of it when you transfer over?
Yeah, it's honestly two just completely different things. So, you're moving in 2D and your movement in 3D, it's just a learned skill. So I don't really find much transition time. The only thing is I might forget how to do the strats, but it's not oh man, well, 3D is impossible. I don't know how anybody's good at 3-dimensional games. N64, Mario run, SM64 runners are the most impressive speedrunners to me, just because of how difficult it actually is to do what they're doing.
I don't know if you have this issue, but my brain just for some reason, or maybe it's the way I see, but trying to understand where I'm at in 3D space, I still struggle with this day. And I've played 100 3D games at this point, and I still struggle with just that simple fact of where I am. And it creates a whole new layer.
Yeah, spatial awareness is tough, especially in 3D games. So.
Do you have a goal time for Super Mario 64? Because I have seen you play it multiple. You've submitted runs. You've done some time with the game.
Yeah, I did. I'm trying to get a sub 2 and 120 star.
Nice.
And it's tough. I have a 208.01 right now. It's not on speedrun.com, but I got that last week. And Yeah, just trying. It's a tough game. I'm not that consistent yet. I kind of got lightning in a bottle, I think, for that run because now I can't touch it. So
It's another one of those games where it reminds me a little bit of Z1 in the sense that I see runners continuing with runs, 70 star and 120 star specifically, where, you know, they'll continue on with runs when they're in the red and when they're behind significantly 8, 10, 15 seconds, because once again, there are some things just with movement where you can make up time. In that game, you can actually make up a significant amount of time actually with just movement, camera optimizations, all those kind of interesting things I've always found kind of fascinating.
yeah, I like to play the whole game, the late game too, because you can practice the early game forever, but like until you get to the later stages of the run on pace, you're not going to be able to, you know, do that. It's one thing to practice the late game. It's one thing to do. It's another thing to do it in the run.
Right.
And I think that I like to favor the latter.
Absolutely. This is just a random question, but is there a goal, or will you ever put a City Connection down, or is that going to be a run that you'll always revisit?
I mean, man, it's been a while since I did City Connection. I think it's something that I might play, like if I just get the urge to play it. But Bismarck, who has the world record in that, he has sub 6 minute time. I think the task is like 4 something, but that's a tough game because it's a lot of like frame perfect button presses that you have to do. So that was a game that I played growing up that, you know, my parents remembered. I was like, oh, I'm playing City Connection. They knew exactly what I'm talking about. So that game's really fun. I hope more people pick it up.
The thing that I always enjoyed about watching you play it was you mentioned the frame perfect inputs. It's a little bit tough to tell that when you're watching it on stream. You just see the car, you know, kind of going back and forth. So I'm like, why did he just reset there? Like, what just happened? You know?
Yeah, turning around or jumping off of the last tile is frame perfect. So it's like a really tough game.
What are some of the games that you would like to? What's in the future hold for you? What are some of the games you want to play in the future?
Man, I haven't really even thought about like past this goals list. There are some. It's probably more like improvement of stuff that I've already done. As far as like a game that's on my radar, you know, honestly, I was playing Majora's Mask the last couple days.
Yeah, I noticed that.
That's my favorite Zelda game.
Such a good game.
You know, I could see myself doing a run of that. I don't know. My N64 library is like very untapped. Like I feel like there's some potential there. So
Majora's Mask is definitely in like my top 3 of Zelda games that I enjoy. It's criminally underrated. Maybe it's not underrated. I don't know. There's a lot of people who speedrun the game, but it's got so much going on, and it's always interesting. I have always found every playthrough I've gone through of that game has always been interesting, to say the least.
Mm-hmm. I was learning stuff last night when I'm playing. I'm like, I didn't even know this was here, or like I didn't know that this event happened at this time. Like I went back into one of the rooms. I'm like, I didn't know this character could be here. So it's just that game is just really well done.
It's very well done. Switching gears here just a little bit. Excuse me. You've been streaming now for a while, and one of the things I've always respected and really find interesting about your stream is that you're family friendly. And some of us who are a little more, that could be challenging for some of us, especially who have been years and years and years of swearing at video games. So has that been something that you've always done and that you've made a conscious choice to keep it going in the stream? And why so?
Yeah. Like my lifestyle, I just really don't find cursing to be it for myself. This is me. I don't judge anyone if they do this because I'm in streams all the time that do not have family-friendly policies, and so it's just not in my nature to do that. Of course, I curse from time to time. I try not to do it on camera. Right. You know, my mom might be watching. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So I try to maintain or to like stay at that level, I guess. But for the stream, I really wanted to do it because, you know, now like. I guess now more than ever, you know, I want to be able to watch something with I have one kid and she's almost 2. So like, I want to be able to watch something with her that I know is going to be, you know, safe from a language perspective. And so I said, well, I want to supply that for other people. And I've had countless people say, like, I watch with my 8-year-old. They love your stream. Thank you for providing this atmosphere that they can be a part of. And so, like, before I did speedrunning, I worked in youth development. So, like, it was already in my nature to, like, have a clean vocabulary or whatever. But nobody's perfect.
No.
But I don't think I've let one slip on stream. Maybe once almost, but I don't. There's no video evidence, so right. I'm just gonna deny that it ever happened.
And I've seen there are times. Oh, God, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna finish that up, and when my child gets older and I want to show her, hey, your dad plays video games on stream, and I can show her any video, and it's no problem. Like, want to set a good example for others.
Absolutely. And I've seen that comment so often in your stream about, oh man, I'm watching with my kid and this and that. And I just think that that's awesome. First of all, that families are getting to share their passion with other people and show them, but that they can. They know it's safe to do so. Another thing, I've noticed that you do put you'll be in a group chat or whatever, and you got to put a disclaimer out there. And I actually really respect that. And I've actually honestly tried to do some of the same myself, because I think I may have heard you say this, or maybe it's somebody, but like, if you get so angry at a game that you can't control yourself, then perhaps maybe you should consider taking a break, or not approaching the game that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's different for everybody.
Totally.
Yeah, because some people, it's just their personality. A lot of people, I go to different chats and I see the same people in my chat who keep it clean will just be posting whatever in other chats, and I just like shake my head at them and we'll call them out sometimes.
Yeah, totally, exactly.
So
they deserve the deal.
It's different for everybody.
Absolutely.
So I don't hold anyone else to that standard. I just hold myself to it.
Yeah, no, and I absolutely, and it's nice that you offer that to people, and I guess that's my point again, because you're right. Most of the streams I watch, I enjoy the streamer using the F word. It's just, but to your point, it's just a thing. I really dig it.
There have definitely been times where I've wanted to drop the F word. Absolutely, like muted the mic, walked away. So it has happened, but. Again, you can't prove it.
That's another thing I wanted to ask you about. One of the things I noticed is I've seen, yes, there are some times that have been super frustrating, but you seem to keep a pretty calm demeanor while you're speedrunning. And is that something is that just kind of your approach in life, or is that something that you have to constantly think about when speedrunning?
That's just my approach in life. I try to keep everything in perspective. Like, I'm playing a game, people are watching online, to get mad at the thing that supposedly brings you joy is really just, like, for me personally, I just don't see that. I get frustrated at things, but to like stay mad at something or somebody, like, I just try not to do.
It's a tremendous asset if you can stay level-headed during a speed run, especially one like Z1 or some of the other games that you play, because being able to think clearly while you're doing this, it makes a lot more runs happen that may not have happened, where maybe you gave up too early or too soon.
Absolutely.
The other thing you mentioned, your 1-year-old daughter, you work. I mean, how do you balance all of these things and still able to find time to speedrun?
I have a really supportive wife who, for lack of a better term, lets me speedrun as often as I do. Streaming is financially lucrative for our family. Sure. So like right now we're one income, and so that's really helped us. We've bought both of our houses off money that I've made streaming. So she's really proud. It's all about, we talk about it. So like, I try to set a schedule of like, okay, these are the days I would like to, I would like to stream. I've got this going on. It's going to be for this long. And so that way it's not like a surprise when, I'm streaming for 7 hours in the middle of the day and you're dealing with our child. So I try to balance that. But yeah, I do work full time as a software engineer. I've got she's 2 now, 2-year-old daughter who requires more and more attention these days. And I want to be there for that. So I'm shifting the schedule around where I'm only streaming at night a couple days a week, to when she's at school, and so that we get to have that time. And then my wife and I make time where it's like, okay, we're not gaming tonight. I'm setting this time to be like intentional with my time. And so really I don't relax that much. I don't just like sit and watch TV. I'm always doing something. whether it's a project, speedrunning, work, hanging out with family. Like it's just, there's a lot of things that go. So we mentioned casual gaming. Like that just doesn't happen that often, but it does sometimes, but not very often.
I noticed you didn't mention sleep in there at all, but I
sleep is like what happens at the end of everything else. And like, okay, I have to sleep because I'm about to pass out.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, I sleep. I don't know. I sleep about 8 hours a day too, so it's not. I used to sleep a lot less. I've been trying to go to the gym more recently, so. It's funny I say that because I haven't gone this week at all.
Perfect.
We were out of town for a few days, but so there's a lot that I try to fit into it.
I appreciate too that you mentioned the scheduling. I think that's kind of important. So my wife, if you have a significant other in your life, my wife doesn't game. So having to kind of just, walk through and just being honest about it, I noticed that's helped out a lot too. But like having a set schedule really has helped her out, knowing when we can schedule time together and things like that. And if you've got a significant other that supports that, that's a huge plus. But if not, that's one of those things just to think about. Think about perhaps creating a schedule, and it makes it a little less, hey, spur of the moment type thing. But on the flip side of it, you get to do what you like, and you don't have to give up other things to do so in that sense. You don't have to give up your relationship or whatever that might be, at least in my experience. So,
yeah, I agree.
So I've kind of asked this question as far as speedrunning goes, but is there anything streaming wise you want to do? Anything you've ever, maybe a casual play you'd like to do on stream or anything like that?
So I love doing like these giant projects. So like at the end of 2019, there was this tweet that went out from, if anybody knows, it's a Supper Mario broth, and they post all these interesting Mario facts. But like one of them was that if you add up all the stars in SMRPG, Galaxy 1, 2, Sunshine, Mario 64 DS, Odyssey, it adds up to 2019. So I said, I'm going to do this. It took me 95 hours to do. And it was just this crazy undertaking. Myself and Oglib, another streamer, actually did the same thing. He did 2020, so he added another star to it. We're talking about doing it again.
Oh my God.
I know, but like we're gonna break it up. There's talk about it. We haven't solidified anything.
Not committing.
I do love that. I love racing games with friends. That's super fun. Like speedrunning is great, but I really want to break it up. Like there's no way I can only speedrun when I stream. It's just it turns out to not be as fun as I would like it to be. Back in the past, that's all I did. Now I try to mix it up a little bit more. I have these goals that kind of keep me driven. So there are some casual games I haven't played, like the second Paper Mario game I haven't played, which I own. There's Prime 3 I haven't played.
Hey, there you go, yeah.
Four Swords Adventure I haven't played, but I bought all these games and I'm like, well, I want to go through all the Zelda games again. There's some longer categories I'd like to do, but just my opportunities to do those are limited. So I'm, just having to pick a little bit.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention your community, and I've really enjoyed your Discord. I don't chat a lot. I'm mostly a lurker basically at everything I do, but there's these really fun outside of gaming channels that you have on your Discord. I mentioned the home repair, channel you've got.
Yeah.
There's the side, there's all this great stuff. Talk a little bit about your community and kind of, it's not all speedrunning. That's
Well, life it's not all speedrunning. Like you said, speedrunning is kind of what brought us together. It's not what defines who we are. Sure. I think that I am a speedrunner. I enjoy speedrunning. I like to do it. But we were basically having all these discussions, and I really think this giving people a space to be able to talk with bringing people together around certain topics, like home ownership. I try to find tips online all the time. Well, why not just create a place where people could talk about that stuff together and share these experiences? And I love Seinfeld TV show, and so we have one of the best. So we've got a Seinfeld dedicated channel, but we also have the airing of grievances. So if people just need to vent and then need some sympathy, they can get it in this channel. It's just I've had the worst day. I had this idiot boss, and I need to tell people about it, just to get some camaraderie and what's going on. So there's that, and then celebrating things, and even like being parents, like finding, asking for advice and just sharing stories, and you can kind of see that other people are dealing with the same thing. Or and then we have sports and other like just like tech stuff like that. We have random conversations, but pretty wide variety of stuff in the Discord for sure.
I'm not 100% sure, but I think that your Discord was one of the first ones I joined. And when I first got on Twitch, ignorantly so, I assumed it was just all young people. And as I've learned, speedrunning really appeals to a wide variety audience. I mean, it's huge. We have 13-year-olds, but we also have, you know, people in their 40s and 50s, and I'm in my 30s. And I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was, that found that, oh man, a lot of these people are my age. They're into the same stuff, and we have similar interests. Who would have thought? You know, like
yeah, exactly. And it's actually kind of driven by the game, the era the game is in.
Mm-hmm.
So like Zelda 1, I don't know who the youngest person is that runs Zelda 1, but I'm guessing they're like, if I had to guess, I'd probably say like 25, 26.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
But like there aren't many teenagers signing up for Zelda 1. You know, honestly, I think Cosmic is the youngest person who's run Zelda 1 at like more than once.
Yeah.
Because he's been around speedrunning forever.
Right.
Yeah,
but still a young man himself, so it's
yeah, he is. Yeah, I think he's still in school, so he's he would be one of those people. But yeah, I mean, I know some of the other guys that run the game, they're approaching 40.
Right.
Like you said, so it's just, I think it's going to just be around for a long time.
One of those things, absolutely. And that's a really interesting point too about how the game sometimes dictates some of those demographics as well. Danger's was on a couple episodes ago, Mario Odyssey. There's interestingly enough, there's actually a pretty wide gap of ages there. I've seen a lot of younger 20s or that age group, but also there are people like me who fell in love with Mario, and I don't know if you've played Odyssey, but it's like the epitome of every three. It is such a great fun game, even for somebody of my age. You know, it takes me a little bit longer to get it than some others, but it's really fun to play.
Absolutely, love Odyssey.
It's a great game. It's wonderful. I thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I really do appreciate it. Where can people find you on the internet if they want to check out a lack stream?
Yeah, not a Latin.
Yeah, sorry,
stream.
right.
We already know where that. We already know where that is.
Here.
Yeah. But yeah, my Twitch, lackattack24. The Discord link is in the chat. I have a Twitter. It's the same thing. There's also a YouTube channel. I basically post all my PBs there. But yeah, just come to the channel and say hello. I actually have what I like to call the quietest chat on Twitch. I will get, it's crazy. I will have like 200 viewers some days, and there'll be like 20 minutes goes by and nobody says anything. I'm like, who is watching this? Nobody's talking. I mean, it's great if that's what you do. If you're a lurker and you just like to do that, that's fine. So if you want to come into a big giant empty room with nobody talking, come on over. We have. At least I have a good time.
Oh man, I feel guilty because I have like tens of thousands of channel points. I'm there all the time, but I'm lurking most of the time. You know,
I do struggle with like all the new stuff with Twitch. It's like extra, like channel points and like creating new emotes. Like I got some really generous people be a part of my stream in the last few months. Yeah. And it unlocked like 5 new emote slots.
Oh, cool.
I haven't filled them because I'm like, I don't know what to put there. It's really hard to put in the extra effort. Like it's just another thing that I need to do. Well, so it's, you know, I love the community I've got. The chat it's just funny to me.
It's interesting.
It's either way. It's like, you know, I see people with like 30 viewers and they have like this super active chat and it's like everybody's talking. And, you know, a lot of that falls on me. I always say, like, if you have any questions, just ask. I will answer your question. So sometimes that's dangerous.
But you mentioned something, and I think this was from a few years ago, that Oth said the same thing, is that if people don't have any questions, maybe they don't want to hear from me, you know? It's like, so...
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to sit and play the game.
Yeah, like, right.
My stream is, you know, one of my good in real life friends who watches the stream, he said, like, I want, like, I love that your stream is like me being on the couch next to you while you play, instead of like, it's not a really big production, but it's like you're just kind of hanging out in the room.
Yeah, exactly. So it definitely has that feel.
that's kind of what I like to do.
That's a great description of it. And I honestly mean this when I say it. I the way that you approach speedrunning is just it's been invaluable to me and some of the things you do with your stream and stuff like that. So I'm glad you continue to do it to this day, because it's, first of all, it's just really fun to watch. But then secondly, there's some really good takeaways, especially for people who want to get into speedrunning or want to try it. Like just seeing your progression and the way that you approach things and stuff, it's super valuable. And always thankful that you're out there still grinding away and setting some ridiculous records in Z1 still.
Well, I appreciate that. It's been a fun ride. I guess the last thing, it's kind of go back to one of your questions. You're like,
Please.
what's next? So I made 9 goals on this current sheet, and the 10th goal I left open. I don't really have any rhyme or reason to doing any of this, but I couldn't think of a 10th goal. So I just, I put a Google form out, and anyone could submit anything to this, any speedrun you want to see. Isn't it like Bonk's Adventure? Isn't that what you play?
Yeah, I play I play all the Bonk games.
The Bonk games. Yeah. But like, if there's a game that you would like to see me play, you can put it in the list. I'm going to pick it. It's not random, not voted on, but I'm going to do a stream where I go through all of the suggestions and pick one from that list. So that's something. I don't know what the future is going to hold for that. It's basically what sounds good to me and what I would want to play. Yeah. There's been some dumb ones so far, but those are just going to get thrown out immediately. But there are some really good suggestions that I'm going to have to kind of pour over.
Hey, and that's a great way to maybe discover something you might not have thought of before.
Yeah, exactly.
So, well, thanks again. I appreciate all the time, Lack, and I'm looking forward to whatever's coming next, man. I really am.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, and thanks for doing this podcast and just, I don't know, having good conversations with people around the community.
Thanks, everyone, for listening and watching. If you're enjoying the podcast, subscribe, leave a review. All those things go a long way to helping out the podcast. If you'd like to continue the conversation, I'm on Twitter @LatMackey, or you can also join the LatMackey Discord, where we have a sequence break channel. We talk about guests, we have questions. It's really interactive, really fun. Please feel free to stop on by. Thanks so much. See you in the next one.